So far, we have been mostly looking at the inventory from a retailer perspective. Now, inventory management is also a critical issue for manufacturers as well, in which case we will look at the economic production quantity. We will focus on one product only. We assume that we know the annual demand, usage rate is constant, production rate is constant, lead time does not change, and there's no quantity discount, and usage occurs continuously, but production occurs periodically. Okay, now move on. Let's look at the case of production. As production keeps going on, this dashed line here, okay, and the Q increases as time moves on. So these are the relationship between these two. Now, because we also have this certain amount of products being used or being sold or being consumed, so even though the cumulative production rate is like this, the real amount on our hand is this solid black line here. Is the amount on hand, because there is always some products that we produced being consumed, being sold. So it is a little bit less. Now, in the green or blue shaded area, that's the production and usage stage. After a certain time period, a time right here, when our cumulative production reaches a quantity of Q, we stop production. And then we move on to usage only stage. So the usage only stage, you're going to see that the amount on hand keeps decreasing because we do not produce anymore. And this point, which is at the time point we stop production, we have Imax, which is the maximum amount of inventory on hand. After that, after this time point, we stop production. That means the inventory, the products, the amount of products on hand can only be decreasing starting from this point. Now, as the amount on hand reaches 0 here, then we start another production stage. At the same time, even during this production stage, we have usage. So we have the production and usage stage. After the total production reaches a quantity Q again, we stop and it get into usage only stage. So again, the amount on hand will keep dropping in the usage only stage. Now, the total cost here equals to carrying cost plus setup cost. Now, let's look at the setup cost first. Setup cost is every time we start the production again, we have to pay a setup cost, which is S. So that's setup cost for each start of production. So how many times do we start the production? That's demand divided by Q. Okay, that's the frequency of the start of production, the frequency of productions. Now, there's the carrying cost here is Imax divided by 2 times H. So Imax here over 2 is the average inventory level as we did in the last EPQ model, it was Q over 2 here. It's Imax over 2. It's the same idea. It's the average inventory level on hand times HH is the holding cost. So what is the max inventory level Imax then? Imax equals to Q over P times P minus U. So what is Q over P? Q is the quantity. P is the production rate. So Q over P is quantity over production rate. And times P minus U. P is the production or delivery rate, which is the production rate is how fast you produce, minus the usage rate, that is the speed this product is being used or being sold. So if you look at it here, this is the Imax. Imax divided by 2 times H plus D divided by Q times S. Same idea here. As the EPQ model, the condition is the first derivative equals to 0. The second derivative is positive. Then we have a minimal. Okay, so we have to make this 2 happen. So in order to have the first derivative equals to 0, P minus U times H divided by 2P minus 2 times DS divided by Q squared. And we said this equals to 0. Solve for Q, we can find EPQ. We can also prove easily that the second derivative is positive, which we're going to skip it here in this class, and we're not going to require you to be able to do that. When we solve the Q, we find the EPQ from this equation here. The answer is Q star of production, which is EPQ, equals to square root of 2ds divided by H times P divided by P minus U. Let's look at an example. The example is like this. D equals to 48,000. S equals to $45. Each time we start the production again. Demand is 48,000 units. Holding cost is 1 per unit per year. And production rate is 800 units per day. Usage rate is 200 units per day. We plug in the numbers into this equation. D equals to 48,000. S equals to 45. H is 1. P is 800. And U is 200. So plug in the numbers, we get 2,400 units. That is the Q, the quantity. If we produce, we will be able to have the minimal total cost. We can also calculate the Imax, the maximum inventory on hand. Equation is Q divided by P times P minus U. So in this case, Q equals to 2,400, P is 800, U is 200, and divide by P, which is 800. Then you get the maximum inventory is 1,800. If we know EPQ is 2,400 and Imax is 1,800, then we can calculate the TC, which is carrying cost plus setup cost. Plug in Imax, H, D, Q, S, and all those numbers here. We get that the total cost equals to 1,800. Now, let's move on. Please take your time and complete this in-class exercise.